before nationalization, before 1969, the private banks was the order of the day. There was, except State Bank of India and its subsidiaries, there is no government bank, which was contributing to a small extent. The private banks, by and large, if you take between in the 1960s, when agriculture was contributing about 44% to the GDP, the private banks lent only 2% to the agriculture. This was the scenario before 1969. After 1969, after nationalization only, 55 years ago, this particularly the priority sector lending has come into force. It is in the form of, for agriculture, for small industries, for subsequently for education, and then self-help group, all these things to improve the standard of living of the common man. See, the target was fixed, 40%, out of which 18% was allocated for the agriculture. And after 1990-91, after the advent of the neoliberal policies, first Narasimhan Committee, second Narasimhan Committee, and so many committees, they all said abolish priority sector lending. In fact, after the BJP government came into power in 2014, the first conglomeration they convened in 2015, January or February, in Pune, called Gyan Sangam, where the chairman of the public sector banks themselves submitted papers to the extent that priority sector lending has to be slowly phased out. And if they want to compete with the private sector banks, they want to privatize public sector banks, and till then they want to give freedom from opening branches in the rural area. They don't want to open branches in the rural area. They want to concentrate only in urban. So they want, so that they can compete with the private sector like that. So the whole thing, if you structure, if you take the private sector lending itself is eyesore for the people at the helm of the affairs, particularly in the government, particularly in the BJP government. This is the scenario that is obtaining for the past 55 years, particularly after advent of the neoliberal policies, more particularly about after 2014. In 1975-76, in that period, regional rural banks were they were through an act, first through an ordinance, then through an act, they were formed. Start with 5 banks were formed, then it grew into 196 banks totally. Then they started merging banks, more than one bank in a particular state. Like that, there was Vallalar Gramin Bank, there was Adiman Gramin Bank. Vallalar and Adiman Gramin Bank in Tamil Nadu merged into Pallavan Gramin Bank. There was Pandian Gramin Bank. Then Pallavan and Pandian merged into Tamil Nadu Gramin Bank. Like that, in every state, so many individual banks, regional rural banks, they were merged into one entity. In some of the states, there are more than one regional rural bank. There are 43 regional rural banks as of now, and it is located in 26 states and 3 union territories. Now, the demand of RRBs is very correctly, they are projecting the demand. They want one single regional rural bank in one state, one bank in one state, and that those banks, it will be 29 banks. Instead of 43, it will come to 29. These 29 banks should be connected as National Rural Bank of India through an apex body. Why they are demanding it? Why there is a need for, why there is a, case, what is the case for merging it with the public sector? See, as far as regional rural banks is concerned, they are largely situated in rural semi-urban. 92% of the branches, there are about 22,000 branches, 92% are situated in rural and semi-urban. And urban and metro, not metro, only urban branches are only hardly 8%. Now, what is the case in the case of public sector banks? It is hardly 50%. When the 92% of the regional rural banks are situated in semi-urban rural area, only 50% of the bank branches in public sector are situated in rural and urban area. Suppose you merge regional rural banks with the public sector banks, your rural economy is going to be in doldrums. It is going to face very serious problems. And regional rural banks, they are extending 92% on private sector, whereas public sector bank is giving only 40%. Public sector banks are giving very big ticket loans, but that is not the case with regional rural banks. And out of 92%, 70% is meant for agriculture. It is allocated for agriculture. Out of this 70%, 48% is for the poor and the marginal farmers. So, by merging these regional rural banks, the persons and sector that is going to be affected is agriculture, and more particularly the small and marginal farmers. This is going to be the scenario. So we cannot think of merging regional rural bank with the public sector bank. On the other hand, if you are able to form NRBI and expand it through branch expansion, they need capital, small capital. When public sector banks were given 3,10,000 rupees as capital in 5 years, between 2017 and 22, they were hardly given some 11,000 crores capital in 2021. And since formation, the total capital given to regional rural banks is hardly 9,000 crores. They have to be given some more capital to strengthen. And technologically, there needs some improvement. And they have to expand. Now there are about 6 lakh villages. The regional rural bank branches are hardly 22,000. There must be a phased manner of expansion. Every year there should be 10,000 branches like that, 10,000, 15,000 branches. Up to 1 lakh branches, the regional rural bank should be covered in 5 years like that. Then the entire rural economy can be taken care of by the regional rural banks. Now what is the scenario? Despite regional rural banks, despite cooperative banks, despite public sector banks, more than 50% of the regional rural people are now still pushed towards microfinance institutions or non-banking financial companies or usurious money lenders or landlords or somebody. So these are the people they are pushed towards. So, and the interest they are collecting is 48%, 60%, 72% also. And the money is collected not every month, it is collected every week also, every 15 days also. The poor people are now suffering like anything. The rural people, they are not getting money properly for their needs. So if you have to save them from the clutches of these MFIs and non-banking financial companies and the landlords, the regional rural bank is the only solution. They have to be strengthened, expanded, and technically they have to be supported. Then we can definitely see a big change. And that change will not only save the lives of the people in the rural economy, it will also be very helpful for the development of the economic development of our country. That is the best idea. I support that. And that is the only viable solution. And that only will serve the purpose for which it was formed.